Newcastle, Eddie Howe coming out of the international break. What is their starting 11 going to look like? What is their group going to look like for the rest of this month and going forward? Because we have some questions here. We have some injury issues. We have Anthony Gordon suspension. So we probably know right now Anthony Gordon is going to be starting Champions League. But looking at the schedule, Newcastle still don't have a win in the Premier League. But okay, they're home against Wolves, home against Barcelona after game week 4. Then they're at Bournemouth. You think they're going to rotate quite a bit in the EFL Cup. They're home against Bradford in that one. So we're going to see probably a full rotation in that game, I would guess, because following that, they're home against Arsenal, and then they're at USG in the Champions League. And then, again, home against Nottingham Forest. So a pretty difficult schedule. You have that one EFL Cup game where there's going to be heavy rotation in that. But what are we looking at coming out of the international break, entering game week 4, after the transfer window? What does this group look like? So my question is, where is the depth actually going to be for the defense in the midfield? This team had, when they were in Champions League a couple of seasons ago, they just didn't have the depth to deal with, you need to rotate players. You can't start the same guys in every Champions League game, in every league game. You can't do that, because you guys are just to get injured, and then you're going to be down to basically guys, your Emil Crafts of the world, I guess, is kind of what it comes to when you run these guys into the ground. So what is this group going to look like? The added forwards, they have enough on their attacking line that, okay, a suspension to Anthony Gordon isn't going to be the end of the world. They don't have to go into a game, champion or Premier League game or Champions League, saying, okay, our only striker option is Wissa. They're not going to have that problem anymore. So they have depth here. So at the number 9, it's going to be Woltemade, Yoane Wissa, and Wissa. Wissa probably going to start that EFL Cup game, if I would have to guess. On the right wing, again, Anthony Gordon, he can play in that 9 role as he did the first couple matches, but that's not what they're going to do. So on the left wing, Anthony Gordon can play on the left wing. Harvey Barnes can play on the left wing. And Wissa, I think, is actually going to be an option for the left wing. So they have a few options there. Right wing, we're looking at Alanga has started there a couple times. We know Jacob Murphy had one of his best seasons in his career last season. He can play on the right wing. And then Gordon, I guess, can technically play all 3 spots if we really come to it. But depth on the front line, too deep. That's not really something you could say about the rest of the group. I know Jacob Ramsey came in to be kind of a backup or replacement for Joelinton, but he's not really the same player. So I'm kind of interested to see how that works out. Joelinton was injured just before the break. Ramsey started, picked up an issue, only went 45. Lewis Smiley came in for him. So outside of Guimarães, Tonali, Joelinton, so basically their midfield, what they have, what they're going to be using, Jacob Ramsey, Lewis Smiley, and Joe Willock. Not really any like-for-like replacements per se. Lewis Smiley, maybe the best option to replace those guys. Jacob Ramsey a little more attacking. You could say Willock's a little more attacking because Ramsey and Willock can also play front 3 if need be. So kind of a weird group in the midfield, and these guys are going to get ran to the ground. I don't think there's any doubts about that, what Eddie Howe is going to do, because he doesn't like to rotate as it is. Now you have all these matches. You got to say that in the EFL Cup, we're going to see starts from probably, maybe not even Ramsey, but probably Miley, probably Willock. We'll see maybe some U21 guys, but Bruno's going to play a bunch. Tonali's going to play a bunch. I think we know that. Joelinton, he's had injury issues the past couple seasons. The hope is that he's going to be good coming out of the break, which, okay, if he's good, you just can't start him twice a week for the next 3 weeks coming off an injury. So we'll probably see time from Miley and Jacob Ramsey here coming out of the break. And then at defense, they have some depth. They added Malik Chow, but it's still not a ton. If we're looking at left back and right back, basically 3 options, unless you want to go back. Okay, Dan Burn, formerly played left back for this Newcastle team a couple seasons ago. So technically, okay, Dan Burn is a backup at left back. And I guess I should, Millcraft is also an option. He'll probably be a guy for Jamal Lascelles I think he's healthy. I think Lascelles is actually healthy. He's been injured pretty frequently lately. But Kraft, those guys will be starting probably that EFL Cup match. So we're looking at it like, okay, Lewis Hall is good to go again. I think Lewis Hall will be ready to start coming out of the break. And then Livramento can play on both sides. We know Trippier, he's going to get time. And then Burn, Schär, Sven Botman, just continually injured, it seems. Just seems like whenever he starts, he has to be pulled off early. But I think right now he's at least healthy. And then Malik Chow adds some depth where he's going to get a bunch of time here in the coming weeks. So with all these games. And then Nick Pope and Ramsdale, we'll see if Ramsdale eventually takes a spot from Nick Pope, because right now it's been Pope. I don't think there's going to be anything that stands out to, okay, Nick Pope, you're getting benched here. I don't think anything has happened like that yet. Maybe Ramsdale, probably get that cup start. That's not too surprising. But for now, we're looking at probably Nick Pope starting league and Champions League. Unless for some reason Eddie Howe's like, Ramsdale, you're our guy in Champions League, which would be kind of surprising. So that's kind of what we're looking at with this Newcastle group. We saw just before the break, they kind of played a little bit of just because of injuries and suspensions, they played like this 3-5-2 look, which I don't think they're going to do too much because they added all these attackers. If you go 3-5-2, you're basically saying, okay, we added Wissa, we added Woltemade, we added these guys, and we can only start 2 of them. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. Technically, okay, you could say, okay, 3-5-2, we'll play Livramento on one wing, and then we'll say, okay, Jacob Ramsey can play on one of the wings, or I guess Jacob Murphy could play on one of the wings, kind of thing. They can do that, and that would just mean, okay, you're playing Burn, Schär, and Chow, Burn, Schär, and Botman, or whatever. You got 3 basic center backs in there with 1 left back / right back. And then you have a Murphy, a Ramsey, whoever on the left wing or right wing. That's a possibility. We'll see what the minutes look like as we get going, as these matches start to pile up. We'll see what the minutes look like. But I think that Eddie Howe is going to be pretty, he's going to be sticking to this 4-3-3. That's at least my assumption here going into this, because they have all these attacking options. I don't think you're going to be like, okay, let's actually remove one of our attacking options and replace them with, or I guess technically in the 3-5-2, maybe it's like, okay, you're replacing Trippier or Hall or Livramento with a center back. And I guess in that situation, you're okay. It's the same thing as Dan Burn technically as starting as a left back kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're looking at with Newcastle. Not a ton of depth, but more depth than they had last season. More depth on this front line. I think that depth on the front line, they got the money from Isak. Isak's no longer there. Callum Wilson. I think that they're not going to be at the level of Isak, but I think that you have guys in Wissa and Woltemade and Alanga, just guys from last season that, they didn't have for the depth. And when a couple guys got injuries, there was some issues that popped up. I know Isak was fairly healthy last season. That's why his numbers were really good. But that's kind of what we're looking at for Newcastle. The first game against Barcelona, I'd say probably Trippier does not start that one. I don't know if you want Trippier running against, the likes of Yamal and Rafinha in that game. I'm not sure what they're going to do there, but I think that'll be a fun matchup either way. But that's Newcastle looking at their predicted lineup the rest of the season and kind of going through their depth chart a little bit here. So thanks for watching rotowire.com/soccer. YouTube 15 to get 15% off over at RotoWire. We got a lot of good stuff over there, FPL wise, just general football, general Premier League wise over there. Thank you.